So our last session before we go into happy hour, which I know is what everyone is actually waiting for, is for our event sponsor, Klaviyo. We have Klaviyo will be sharing how to create community through your own channels. Following the session, like I said, join them for Cling to Community, a cocktail making experience with Klaviyo. So it looks like Mr. Joe is here. Joe, thank you for joining us. I will pass the mic to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's get the share going here. Awesome. Can you guys see that okay? Gonna go with a yes. All right. Welcome everyone. Happy e-commerce week LA. My name is Joe McCarthy. I'm the Director of Performance Marketing at Klaviyo. And we're gonna talk about how to really think about owning and optimizing and growing your community through the D2C lifecycle. For those of you who aren't familiar with Klaviyo, we are a Boston-based company. We have over 400 employees, over 48,000 customers and relationships in 82 countries. We're most well known for our work in the e-commerce space and most well known for our work in email. We offer email automation, segmentation, analytics, SMS, and a whole lot more. We really truly work with brands from day zero when they're just starting out, when they're just leaving their Etsy phase, all the way up to when they're billion-dollar household names. So the moral of the story, we're all about growth, and you're going to hear a lot of different strategies tonight on how you can keep growing your business and see even more success. So 2020, I think for everyone, it started out like this. It was happy fireworks, and it very quickly turned into this, where it's been kind of a stressful year, I think, for everyone. It's been with a lot of changes. When I talk to a number of our customers, I'll say, what was your plan B this year? And they'll be like, plan B, we're on plan C, D, E, Z, double Q, X, Y. It's been a lot. And I think what's really amazing though, even though it's been a difficult year, in the e-commerce space, it's really been a different story. This is truly the greatest shift towards e-commerce that the market has ever seen. And why is that so important? Well, it presents a whole slew of opportunities that e-commerce brands can truly leverage right now to keep growing and to build relationships and community. This year, we estimate that the e-commerce space will actually hit $1.1 trillion for the first time. Prior to the pandemic, the expectation was that maybe we would grow by 15% and do 690 billion. Now, I know these numbers are crazy and outrageous, but now we're talking about hitting 1.1 trillion, which is really remarkable. And there's a lot of reasons why, and we're going to take a few minutes to educate you on these items before we jump into some of the tactics and strategies we've been thinking about. So why are those numbers so astronomical? Why are some e-commerce brands having the best year they've ever had? Why is it that back in March and April and May, some brands were seeing that every single day was record-breaking for them? Well, it's because 90% of consumers who we polled extensively through over 14,000 responses are now shopping online. The old stat that used to float around the e-commerce space was that maybe 40%, 50% of people had shopped online, but now this is up to 90. And in a lot of ways, it was because of brick and mortar closures and things like that. But this change, this shift is presenting lots of opportunity. The other big opportunity that's out there is, as a result of people shifting online, they're now searching for the items that they need in new places. 46% of consumers are shopping from brands they've never shopped from before. And what that means for you is opportunity to capture these new consumers and to build relationships and grow your community. What's really been remarkable, so at Klaviyo, one of our features that we offer is the ability to have a form on your website and capture that email address, AKA start a new relationship with a customer. Since COVID, those website form submissions have doubled, which is amazing. Amazing opportunity for new relationships. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I really want to highlight this opportunity because it has been a tough year, but in this space specifically, there's a lot of bright spots. So what is driving those opportunities? Well, it's amazing because not only are consumers filling out those forms, but when they do, and when you start to email them as a brand, those same people, they're engaging. 20% increase in open rates, 43% increase in clicks. So not only are they opening, but they're also actually clicking and engaging with your brand. And what that has trickled down to is a 36% increase in what we call the revenue per recipient. So for every individual that you email, it's a 36% increase in that. So a lot of numbers. What does this all mean? Well, what we're seeing from the Klaviyo customer set, again, this is from over 40,000 customers, that email has driven an 86% lift in revenue. So a remarkable number to really think about the fact that through email, you can see an 86% lift right now. Email performance is truly soaring, and it's a huge opportunity and great way to build and foster those relationships with customers. The main takeaway as we start to go into the strategies is there's truly never been a better opportunity, especially as we go into Q4, especially as we go into Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Now is the time to really capitalize on all of these individuals who are shopping online. So how do we actually do that? How do we think about capitalizing on this new opportunity? Well, we truly think it's by maximizing the data that you have made available to you, the data that your customers and prospects are willing to share with you, and then using that in every stage of the D2C journey. So what is that? Where are those places that we're talking about? Well, at Klaviyo, we believe in the power of owned marketing. Owned marketing means controlling the customer experience in the channels where you have the maximum amount of control. So that's email, web, and on mobile devices. Here, you can ultimately control the message you send, how often you send it, who you're sending it to, where you're pointing those individuals to on your website, the aesthetic, you control the whole thing. To really maximize data, you want to leverage these channels where you own the customer relationship and you can truly build from the ground up. And when we think about where we're building and how we're doing it, we're leveraging data in those owned marketing channels through all 4 stages of the life cycle. So we're going to go through these 4 stages with some strategies and recommendations that we think you should really be considering right now. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I'm a total data dork, total email dork. I could talk about these for hours. We could spend literally days on each session. So this is really just to get you thinking, and we're happy to help and fill in some details afterwards. So 4 stages, it starts with acquisition, conversion, fulfillment, retention. And the big important thing with retention is it doesn't stop there. This becomes a cycle because you want to convert those loyal customers you've retained into advocates who are going to help you continue to grow your business through word of mouth and referrals. So let's get started with acquisition. What does acquisition mean in our book? Well, for us, this is all about gaining website traffic. That's your objective here. What your role is as a brand is to truly learn and engage with those users who are coming through. So your drivers are SEO, customer referrals, social media, paid advertising, events, pop-ups, all things that are designed to drive awareness and drive people to your site. Now, as I mentioned, the good news, brand discovery is at an all-time high. So people are coming to your site, they're engaging, they're looking for the products and services they need. So you have more opportunities to engage with them. And what you want to remember here is that customers now in this very fast-paced e-commerce space, they're looking to engage with brands that really offer authentic experiences, that really communicate in a way that makes them feel like they're understood, like you're talking to them and they're the only individual in the room. So what are some tactics for this? Well, the very top of things, we want to make sure that we're thinking about authenticity. And when it comes to authenticity, this is really all about being really true to yourself and being really thinking about the differences that you have as a brand. So the big change with D2C brands, you have more data, more information on what your customers like, what they're interested in, and you can use all of that to truly curate this experience. Establish your brand voice. Make sure that what you've dictated as a brand comes through really effectively in all of the channels. Each time someone encounters your brand, whether it's in social media, an email, on your website, out at a pop-up, you want to make sure that it feels like the exact same brand, exact same experience. It should feel unique to the space, but it shouldn't feel different. It shouldn't be like meeting a person again. Now, in this presentation, we try to really touch on some brands that I think do this really well, that are well known, and that you can really look to for inspiration. One of my favorite brands that I always talk about, who I think does this idea of authenticity and storytelling extremely well, is Away. If you go through their social media, if you respond to their campaigns, if you purchase from them, you know that they sell goods for travel. They sell suitcases, but they're never pushing a product. They're truly talking about all the places you'll go, all the things you'll do, all the places you'll see as a result of this. Now, maybe not the most timely reference with everything that's going on, the restrictions with travel. Nevertheless, still a really great example of storytelling that you can look into. I would challenge you to go look and see what they're doing, especially now knowing that travel is so tight. Great example to really dig into on that idea of authenticity and truly being a storyteller. Now, the next idea, and what we've also looked to do, as you see some of these slides, is incorporate some of the partners who you may want to look into that offer some of these types of items. So when it comes to really thinking about acquiring new customers and engaging, it's all about leveraging relevant customer data to develop your social ad strategy. So when we think about this, have you already built an email audience? Most likely you have. For us, it's all about then using those email engagements, using those people who have come into your file, and leveraging them to do lookalike targeting. This will help you generate better ad groups and really zero in on the right audience, because you know these are your purchasers. You know they're the ones that are most interested in you. And it allows you to also take those audiences. Maybe you have a group who haven't necessarily come back to your site relatively recently. At some point, you paid to acquire them. Use your email list, connect it to Facebook, re-engage them that way, so you're not losing those customers. One of the ways that we really think about this is taking the audience you have, understanding their behaviors, and then leveraging them in those channels. So what does that mean? That sounds like a lot. For us, look at the existing relationships you've already built. Pull out your VIP customers. So those are the people who have purchased from you often, they purchase from you frequently, they spend a lot with you. And you want to leverage those individuals to create your lookalike audiences. These are going to be your best opportunity to go out into the social sphere, find the people who most closely look like your best shoppers, and try to get them to convert. Or maybe you use a lead gen ad through social and try to get them to fill that out to get them into your email list. Both great strategies. Both are relying on the concept of using the data that you already have, which is the most valuable asset that you have, to build your community. So this is kind of what it looks like when you're doing it through Klaviyo, just for reference. So we always think about starting with your VIP customers, those, like I mentioned, who purchase often and frequently, and syncing them to go and do that acquisition. Really great strategy, because it's, again, based on your data. Another one that you really want to think about, do you have a group of customers who are going to be willing to drive referrals? You already know that they're engaged with you. You know that they like your purchases. They've purchased from you multiple times. Great time to think about starting to offer a referral program. Really worthwhile to test or two. Here you see a get 15, get 15, 15, get 15. Lots of testing you can do here on those thresholds to figure out what's right for your audience, but something that you can spend a lot of time to get to know and will really drive down your acquisition costs. And then finally, it's all about building trust. So as you're engaging with these new individuals, they want to know that you're a trustworthy brand, that you have people who have already purchased from you and who have had a great experience. Here, we really think about how can we leverage that social proof. Maybe you're using one of the partners you saw on the previous slide to collect those reviews. When you're thinking about going out there into the space to really do that advertising, leverage those social reviews, that social proof point, to pull people in, because it shows your credibility. It shows that you've done this, you've delivered great experiences. All right, so acquisition overview. Main objective here, remember, get website traffic. Your role is to really learn and engage. And then you have those traffic drivers that we mentioned. So now you've started to get people onto the site. Now it's all about how are we going to convert them? How are we going to actually make money from them? Well, here on the conversion side, your objective as you're looking to build your community and build your community of purchasers is to really earn that sale. Your role as a brand is to convince them. So when you're looking to do this with your community and to build that community, email marketing, on-site content, paid remarketing, great optimized landing pages, reviews, all things you can use to drive that conversion. Now, I'm going to share a couple of data points on why this is so important. This is from the research that we had done during the spring. And what we found was that shoppers were truly looking for great experiences. And ultimately, many people were just kind of like somewhat satisfied. And about half of the pie chart here, you'll see was either neutral, they weren't having a great experience. And about 25% of them, or 20%, they were actually fairly unsatisfied. So there's a whole bunch of people out there that haven't loved their shopping experience that you can step in, wow, and really welcome them into your community. See, ultimately, customers want truly seamless shopping experiences. They want to see that you care about them. They want to feel like they're unique, like they're the only shopper you have. So you really want to think about tailoring all of these experiences to them. So what are some conversion tactics to really win those purchasers? Well, one of the first ones that we love that I always recommend, really thinking about engagement strategies, things like on-site pop-ups and quizzes. What's great about these types of things is that they can help your new customers find the product that's just right from them by simply providing a few questions. Now, I always use the Beard Brand example. I love their brand. They started with a really small quiz and they've over time built it up. I think they're at like 20 questions now. I wouldn't say go start with 20, start with a few that'll help refine that strategy, help get people to the right product for them. And what's really amazing is that through this type of approach, because they may not ultimately know exactly what's right for them, especially when it comes to cosmetic products or hair products, they're really looking for a consultative approach. These types of strategies really offer that engagement, and they also allow you to learn about the customer. When you're running these types of engagement quizzes, not only do they help the individual get closer to the product that's right for them, but it helps those individuals provide you with information. So you'll capture all of those data points of like what their favorite colors are, what types of products they like, how often they may want to purchase this product, all things you could build into a quiz, and all things that you'll actually capture and store as data that you can use to personalize items. So here you see a flow that was built in Klaviyo. And what this is doing is it's sending an automated email to someone after they've completed a quiz. And what we look for here is, has someone ordered before? If they have, great, thank them for participating, acknowledge that you understand that they've bought before. Now, if they haven't, maybe you're offering them a product sample because this is their first time purchasing. So here what you see is the output are two different emails, but we've customized the email they're getting, and we're customizing what's being sent to them based on their quiz responses. So a great strategy to provide a really tailored experience from the engagement that feels like you really just generated this just for them. Now, another tactic that you may want to think about is thinking about using really relevant product recommendations within your website and within your emails. So most likely, someone may have already engaged with some of your products on the site. They've signed up for emails, and now you really want to convert those recipients. What you want to think about is embedding the types of products that they've engaged with directly into your email. So when they see it, they might be engaging with an email that's talking about some content, maybe an upcoming event or a video, something along those lines. But the products that are showcased are from categories or similar products to what they've already browsed. So again, it feels like it was very much hand built for them. And then the last thing I would really think about is just when it comes to the actual shopping experience, the end point, are you offering all different ways for the user to convert? Are you making it smooth, being supportive with it? That's a really great strategy because with so much going on this year, you just want to make it simple. Everyone's looking for simple. Now, one major point that I would recommend to think about, especially going into Black Friday and Cyber Monday and Q4, is how to clearly communicate things like shipping. So you may be offering free shipping. And if you are, that's great. You definitely want to position that prominently. I know it can be an expensive item to offer, but it's definitely worthwhile. And what you want to make sure you're doing is through something like this, like a Klaviyo form, or through your website notification bar, that you're promoting those types of incentives. And another thing to think about here, maybe you are offering free shipping, but maybe you know that you're having delivery delays. Also put that here. Right now, it's incredibly important to communicate with empathy and to also talk to your customers in a way that sets proper expectations. If you know there's going to be a delay, let them know in advance, even if it's a possibility. Better to let them know than having them find out after the sale. So some great ways that we've seen do this. So great free standard shipping offer here. What I love about this is in their carousel, they're promoting one offer, which is their work from home discount. And then again, up at the top there, you see the free standard shipping offer. So again, great ways to very simply communicating about things that matter right now, work from home so it's relevant, and then the standard free shipping. Now, another one that we've talked quite a bit about is the idea of, are you offering payment flexibility? You've probably seen that this has been a growing trend, and it may be something that you want to consider offering. So promote the idea of different types of payment options, again, to further reduce those purchases towards the end of the sale there. Now, that brings us to the end of conversion. So again, what are the objectives here? Earn the sale. Your role is to convince the consumer to purchase from you in your channels, email, on-site content, paid remarketing, landing pages, and reviews. Now, I know we went through this quickly, as I said. This is all content that you can find on the Klaviyo site if you want to dig in deeper, and we're happy to talk and provide other recommendations as well. So let's get into the next stage here, fulfillment. What does it mean for fulfillment? Well, obviously you're delivering the product. That's part of the goal here, but you also need to deliver on your commitment, and that's your objective here. When it comes to this, really what a great brand experience means, and what someone who's owning that experience and really paying attention to their community and their customer, your role is to reassure the individual as they're going through the process. Now here, there's lots of different shipping and logistics platforms, all of which allow for triggered automations and notifications, and all things that you can also tie into Klaviyo, for example, to send those updates to the customer. Now, when it comes to this side, customers ultimately want to understand what's happened. This was true before the pandemic, and in the state that we're in now, where we know that shipping and delivery has been an issue, we know customers are experiencing delays, it's good to keep them up to date. And they basically are expecting, they want consistent updates as the time is going on. Now, I mentioned that free shipping is a really important item. This is why one of the data points that we came across as we were doing research is that right now, one of the biggest drivers to whether or not someone is going to purchase from you is truly offering whether or not you offer free shipping. It's a major part of the decision process right now. So if you can do it or you already do it, make sure that you're promoting it, make sure that you're aware, but also, as we mentioned, make sure you're communicating about this as you go. So what are some tactics when it comes to this idea of fulfillment and keeping people aware and engaged, ultimately delighting them? Well, first and foremost, delight those first-time purchasers, especially with speedy, reliable delivery. There's lots of great platforms out there that can be helpful to you. And as I mentioned, they all provide data that you can build automations and nurturers with. When it comes to the actual delivery, have you thought about the way that you're packaging everything? Right now, customers are really loving to be delighted. Everyone is spending more time on social media. It's a great opportunity to put a little extra care into what you're sending out and to really dress up that delivery so when they open it, it's a great unboxing experience. What you see here is an example actually from a Rhode Island-based brand, KJP, where someone actually unboxed their items and they shared it online. So a great way that they're generating word of mouth because people are having this great experience and they're sharing it. So really, it seems like it might be something you want to hustle through. You want to get the package out the door, make sure it gets there, especially with those delays that could be happening. take the extra time, put a little pizzazz into it. It can really help generate word of mouth and surprise and delight. Now, it's great, you know what's going into the box, you know that you're going to surprise and delight them. Again, I mentioned this, but set clear expectations, provide updates before, during, and after as these items are going out to the customers. Tracking platforms are growing and growing in their usage, and there's a reason. It's because customers truly engage and they present lots of opportunities for you to do cross sells and upsells and check in with your customer when you're sending those communications out. So what are some examples of this? Well, here, what we're showing is another email automation. And in this case, we're triggering this based on when a customer has received their order. So what this is actually saying is that I want to send someone a notification when I know that their delivery has reached them. So in this case, maybe you're going to check in. Maybe you're going to see how they like the product. Maybe you're going to share that, this coffee maker pairs really well with this milk frother. All opportunities, again, for you to touch base with the customer, reassure them, show that you care, and it also offers you with an opportunity for an upsell or cross sell. Now, when you're doing this, one of the things we really want to think about is, are we checking in for reviews? So when you do those real-time follow-ups, think about going back out into the customer base, ask them how they liked it. How are they adjusting to the new item that they purchased? Remember that when you collect this information, you can then use these reviews and these data points in your social advertising, in your emails, on your website. They're all social proof points that you want to collect. All right, another strategy here, talking about a different channel, SMS. A lot of times I order something and I just want to know, oh, did my order go through? It seemed like my computer lagged. Did everything happen? We've all had that moment. In this particular case, what we're suggesting is a post-purchase follow-up. Here, all we're doing is confirming that the newest item that was ordered is on the way. We've got the order, it's coming. A great strategy, it feels very lightweight. It doesn't feel intrusive. You're just, again, touching base, letting them know that everything was captured and you've started the process. Now, there's a couple of other things that we should talk about. You guys have gone through this, I'm sure. It comes down to accountability. So not everyone is going to have a positive experience. Let's use the shipping issues that have happened. Sometimes packages get lost. Something's gone awry. Unfortunately, there was a miss here. Here, someone's going to reach out. They're going to express their displeasure. And what you really want to do, if someone, for example, leaves you a negative review, what we're showing is sending them an automated email based on a negative review or a low review score and saying like, look, hey, we're sorry. We understand you're not satisfied. Something went awry here. We want to make the best that we can out of this situation. Here's a deep discount. You're not going to offer deep discounts to everyone, most likely. But when you've already acquired that customer, they've already purchased from you. Now is the time to really try to just fix it. Fix it quick with an automation, give them a discount, show that you care. Now, the one thing that I would say here that I took out because I didn't think we'd have much time, but remember, it's an age-old stat, but it is way more expensive to acquire a new customer than it is to retain one. So if something happens, definitely worthwhile to touch base with them and make it right. All right, so that brings us to our last phase here before we move on. So what happens when, you've got, fulfillment recap. So here we're going to deliver on our commitment. And again, your role as the brand is to reassure, let them know that everything's on their way. The next phase is retention. So this is the last phase, but a very, very important phase. So here it's all about increasing repeat purchase rate. Increasing repeat purchase rate, getting them to come back and getting them to talk about this. Your role as the brand is to truly nurture the relationship here. You've put a lot of time and effort into all the other phases to get the customer here. You want to keep them here. Drivers, loyalty software, email marketing, SMS marketing, and again, the thing that we're here to talk about, building and fostering that community. Here's the slide. I moved it. So ultimately, it is 5 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than it is to retain one. So focus on keeping the customers you have. Why is that so important? Well, ultimately, customers want to be recognized, especially your customers that are your best customers. They want to feel your loyalty. They want to be part of a community. They really want to get that feeling from your brand. And there's lots of ways that you can deliver on this in a very seamless way that are not major lifts. Great just to start somewhere if you haven't been thinking about this, but ways that you can do a lot of testing and continue to build. So, what are some tactics to create lifelong customers? Well, reward them. First and foremost, think about all of the different audiences you have. And let's tie this into Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So, what we've heard from a lot of the brands and customers we work with, brands are going to start to offer discounts a little bit earlier this year. What I'd recommend here is thinking about maybe even offering, if you have a really great sale coming up, incentivize it to your VIP shoppers first and foremost. Give them a preview access. That could be especially great if you have a limited quantity of a particular product. Maybe your hero product with something that's happened in the supply chain, you don't have as many of. Maybe you really want to offer that to your VIP shoppers first. Maybe you want to offer an incentive to those who haven't purchased before so they have better access to your product inventory and can try them. Lots of different strategies, but it's all about thinking about incentives and discounts. One thing that I love when it comes to rewarding people are what we call at Klaviyo date-based flows. So flows that are automations or flows triggered in accordance with a date. Best example, happy birthday messages. Really lightweight, shows that you've understood someone, you know it's their birthday, and you reward them. Sometimes brands don't even offer a discount. It's worth testing, but at least recognizing that it is a birthday. Another strategy similar to this that I absolutely love that I've seen work time and time again is anniversary of first purchases. So imagine that you just purchased something, it was last year, you purchased something going into fall. Imagine getting an email and being like, happy anniversary. You probably forgot the date that you purchased that item, but a great way to touch base with a customer, remind them of your brand, remind them of all the great times they've had with that product. Just a really great winning strategy to think about. Now, another one to think about testing, dollar discounts. I love the strategy. People in general tend to have a higher viewpoint of a dollar-based incentive versus a percentage. What we found is that quite frequently dollar-based offers feel more tangible than a percentage point. It's engaging, and ultimately what's interesting about it is sometimes when people end up shopping, the dollar off amount ends up being more of a savings to you as a brand than if you had given a percentage off. Now, it might not be right for your audience. It's something we definitely recommend doing a test with. Super easy to do an A/B split on this. Definitely worth testing though. And then ultimately think about engaging with your customers when they're likely to buy again. So here we're talking about predictive analytics. One of the features that I love about Klaviyo is that you can think about really checking with a customer based on when we expect them to order next. In this case, what we're doing is sending an automated flow where if someone was supposed to purchase based on the prediction, but they haven't purchased yet, you're nudging them, reminding them, are you ready for something new, something along those lines? Maybe you're offering a discount as a way to push them over the line. Now, if someone has already purchased, maybe it's touching base with them, sending them a different touch point where it might be a cross-sell or it might be an upsell. It's all about touching base, but reminding them that you kind of understand. You're not checking in to see if they need a refill on their coffee because they've already ordered. Whereas on the no side of this, it's really about actually saying hey, are you ready for more coffee? It's been 3 weeks. You can think about the messaging, make it right for your brand, but it's all about those gentle nudges. And then finally, it's really thinking about how you can use custom properties to create richer customer profiles and experiences. One of the things that we love to see is when people reuse great creative that they put together in combination with flows, all based on product browsing. So here, what Highlight's done is they've actually gone in and they've looked at their top 5 hero SKUs, and they're basically tagging customers who viewed them And then they're sending essentially a viewed product flow that's all about that particular product. In here, what they've done is they've actually taken the email from when they launched the Fuse short, and they're sending this really tailored email experience based on a custom property being tagged. So again, a great way to engage with the customer, provide a great content asset. And as a reminder, this is something that they had created for their announcement. So they're getting more shelf life out of this particular campaign. And then on the idea of loyalty, really think about how you can establish and promote loyalty programs that recognize your customers. They have a monumentally great ROI. Redeeming members tend to spend at a higher rate, and they also have a higher average order value. Now, there's, again, lots of different platforms you can do. You can also build out a more basic version of this to test it through Klaviyo, but it's something to really think about. It's, again, all about rewards, all about incentivizing, and all about recognition here. All right, last couple of slides here. So, community. What does it mean to be part of a community? Well, here it means really engaging in a dialogue. You've spent time, you're retaining customers, you've shipped to them. You really want to focus on sharing useful content and connecting your customers with other brand enthusiasts. One of the things that we love when we're thinking about how to do this here is to truly start conversations through social sharing that unite your customers and get engagement. Here you can see an example from a Boston-based company, Noble. They're essentially a athletics brand. 2,000 likes, tons of comments on this particular post. It's just a great winning strategy because you're driving that engagement. It's all about the customers and they're engaging with one another. You're really just starting the conversation and then stepping back. Another way you may want to think about this, product how-tos. So here we're talking about Wash and Go Wednesdays. This is something that Kim from Curl Mix had started a while ago and has been doing for years now. Customers love it. It's something it's grown and grown over time, but they really look forward to actually seeing the content. And it's something that was very much on brand and a great way to just focus on how to teach someone something new. And then lastly, really think about how you engage with the customers, keeping things light, making sure that if you have some customers who maybe have stopped purchasing, really think about going back in, re-engaging with them. Again, acquiring a new customer, much more expensive. So think about how you can retain them. Here is the other time that you may want to offer a deeper discount to bring them back into the flow. So that brings us to the end of retention. So again, as a reminder here, it's all about increasing repeat purchase rate. Your role is to nurture lots of different drivers. The most important thing though to do is focus on retaining those customers. When they have a great experience, when they feel like they're part of your community, they're going to tell their friends about it. Their friends are going to come, they're going to purchase, and this cycle keeps going. It's all about providing great experiences that'll build word of mouth and build that advocacy. Now, those are the 4 stages. Again, we could have talked about these for hours. The biggest takeaway here is making sure you're thinking through them and making sure that you're leveraging data through every single stage of them. At Klaviyo, we truly believe that what you need to focus on is owning your growth. And owning your growth comes from focusing on those owned marketing channels, email, web, and mobile, where you truly control the customer experience. At Klaviyo, the way that we make this possible is by putting all of this information at your fingertips through a true singular view of the customer, all information that you can basically build automations and flows and campaigns from, so it feels like you're speaking to that individual in a true one-to-one way. We can pull lots of data in from all of the different platforms and touch points that you've seen to really build even stronger, even more compelling experiences. Customers in the last year alone have made $3.7 billion by focusing on really owning their growth, owning their customer relationships. And with that, that brings us to the end. I really thank everyone for joining us. I know that was a lot. Happy to take some questions and happy to really think about anything in the future too. If you have any questions, maybe not tonight, maybe tomorrow. Okay, cool. One of the first questions that we get is really around the idea of how how do we think about where to start for Black Friday and Cyber Monday? A couple of places that I would definitely make sure to recommend as you're going through this. First and foremost, you likely may have already had some email automations going out. Biggest item to think through, making sure that you've updated those, making sure that you've touched base on them, and ensuring that you truly have those kind of set up for success. I think that that's probably it for questions. I would remind everyone to come to the community Clink after this, and we'll kind of pick up the conversations. Question from the audience. Okay. Great. So I'd love to hear more ways you can use predictive analytics and data to improve my omnichannel targeting. Great question. So one of the things that I really love when it comes to predictive analytics is there's a lot of use cases with the examples we were talking about earlier. So one thing that I truly love is thinking about, especially if you sell a consumable, and this is kind of on the example that we were showing before. If you sell a consumable and you know that someone's going to purchase every 30 days or 60 days, predictive analytics, great way to touch base. You can also build lots of robust segments. So you're not just touching base email. You could build that segment as we talked about, sync it to Facebook or Instagram, and use that again to do remarketing there. So you're again prompting that purchase. Another way to think about predictive analytics, we do something with predictive gender, which I think is really cool. So a lot of times you've captured tons of robust information about a particular customer. So you know their gender, you know where they live, all of that information, because maybe they've purchased from you or they've shared this information. Oftentimes for others, we've only collected maybe a first name, last name, maybe it's just a first name and an email, but you really want to try and personalize the communications. We have a great feature where you can use that predictive gender, so you can start to tailor that message a little bit more. So again, even though you don't know a very little bit about them, you can start to curate that experience and start to learn more about them. So then with the next communication, it gets a little more personal and a little more personal. Another question, can we get a copy of the presentation? Yes, I believe this is being recorded and it's going to be distributed after. So that's awesome. One more. So clarifying on my Black Friday and Cyber Monday point, I trailed off because I started to look at the chat. So what was I saying about the automation side of things? So with Black Friday and Cyber Monday coming up, you already have some automations going out. Just a reminder that when those are going out, because there have been things like shipping delays, go through them. Sometimes people get into I've said it and I forget it mentality. Go back in, check in on them, make sure all the messaging is resonating right now. If there's anything you want to communicate about shipping delays or shipping cutoff dates, it's best to start communicating those things, especially those cutoff dates, because they're going to be even earlier this year in those actual communications. So right out of the gate, right when they get a welcome series, they're getting that information. What's the best step if this is something brand new to your team? Great question. If this is brand new to your team, this may have seemed a little bit overwhelming. So I would start small, start simple. Most important thing is to make sure that right now, you're collecting those email addresses, you're starting to build your marketing list, you're starting to build those relationships. That's number one most important thing. Number two from there is to really start making sure that you have your base automation set up. Now, I showed some really complex automations before. Start simple. Make sure that you have a welcome flow. 2, 3, 4 emails at most, something that you can test, but 2 to 3 to get started, that introduce yourself, introduce your brand, introduce some of your hero products, your best products that you know your customers love, you know new shoppers are going to be interested in hearing about. Start with those items. Educate about your brand, educate about your products. The next thing to make sure, do you have your abandoned carts live? So many abandoned carts. A majority of carts are abandoned. It's how e-commerce goes. You want to make sure that you have that right off the bat. So make sure you're sending an automation to customers based on them abandoning their cart. We have lots of content and different strategies you can test here. But the number one thing, if this is new, make sure you get your abandoned cart live. The next one, browse abandonment. Make sure if someone is browsing a product and maybe they don't put into the cart, make sure to follow up with them. And then the last one, after you've gone through all of this, make sure that you have a post-purchase set up. Checking in, seeing how it was, offering a cross-sell or maybe an upsell for a product, but making sure that you've done it. So again, 4 key automations to get started with: welcome series, abandoned cart, browse abandonment, and post-purchase flow. To do a couple of things here. Do you remember an impressive email flow that you received as a customer recently? And why did it catch your eye? Yes, so one of the things that I loved was this particular brand. They were a men's grooming brand. They really they knew who they were as a brand. They shared who they were. They basically represented themselves really well. They encoded themselves in the actual imagery. The copy felt like I was talking to the founder. When you actually started to click through the website, it took you to exactly where you were expecting. It just really stood out. It was as on brand as possible in my eyes. And it was just something that really it made it resonate. It had a catchy subject line. It wasn't sort of run of the mill. It's something that I would imagine that they had tested and tested and tested to get to this point. But it really just kind of stood out to me. So think about those welcome series and do a lot of testing with them, because that's how you'll improve. That's how you'll optimize. So what's the success story about getting the team on board with trusting data or using it as a jumping off point when previously the team has worked on really anecdotal or holistic information? Great question. Biggest thing to do here is test. So if you're looking to really show proof, there's lots of case studies. You can check out our benchmark reports. You can check out all of the information on why email, especially automations, SMS automations, are so key. What you can always do is start to show the difference in sending a more generic email. I don't recommend this, but sometimes we've worked with founders or we've worked with, marketers who just don't believe it. Send a more basic campaign and then send one that's been truly personalized, and show the difference in response rate, show the difference in open rate and click rate, things of that nature. I think the biggest thing that you can do is truly, truly highlight the results that you've seen, because at the end of the day, as marketers, as founders, as owners, we're looking to grow our business. We're looking to make more revenue. When you can show that what you're doing has provided those additional dollars, it's actually had an impact on the business. That's how you start to change those conversations really win. That's how I always approach it personally. So someone asked, could we rename the platforms you've mentioned? There were probably 20 different platforms in here. So what I would suggest is check out the presentation afterwards. The deck will go out from my colleague Lizzie, so get all of that information there. So with the startup, at what stage do you recommend aligning with Klaviyo? I would say right from day one. If you're about to get started, even if you just have, say, a sign-up wall, like you haven't actually released your e-commerce site, all you have is the page that says coming soon, that's when you want to align with Klaviyo. That's when you want to start collecting those email addresses. What's amazing about that, people are going to come. People, whether they're friends or family, they're going to head on over to you. They're going to see that sign-up wall. Capture that information. Let them know that once you're live, you're going to actually send that information to them. You're going to send them a notification that it's now you're ready for sale. You can collect quite a few email addresses that way, especially if you're doing some advanced sort of advertising. You're starting to see the market that you're coming. Highly recommended. That's when I would get started. Right from the get-go, start by building that email list. Quick question here. Do you keep B2B drip sends during business days only? How about those edgy Friday afternoons and send times? Great question. So I've spent a lot of my career working on the B2B side. Uh, what I personally recommend is it's all about testing. I would say that from a time of day perspective, I think with everyone being home, the consumption has shifted a little bit. So I'd recommend testing the days. I would probably, on a B2B, true B2B side, I would think about really focusing in on during the weeks, but it also depends what you're sending. Uh, we are essentially, Klaviyo is a B2B company. Our weekly community newsletter goes out on Saturdays. We did a ton of testing and found that ultimately when we send on Saturdays, that's when we got the best engagement. It's when we saw the majority of people clicking through. They had a little more time to engage, to read some of the blog content that we were sharing or the tips and tricks. So definitely recommend testing it. And it's really easy to kind of get started with that. Cool. And then Lizzie said she's definitely sending out the deck, so we are good to go there. Standout header image best practices. Great question. One couple of things that I would say here when it comes to standout header images, make sure that you're thinking about mobile. So make sure you've gone through, understand where your traffic is coming from. So when you look at your website, how much traffic is coming from mobile, how much is coming through email, how much is coming through desktop, how are your emails engaged with most, where do you see the majority of email traffic coming from? Make sure that once you understand that, my bet is you have a lot of people who are coming through mobile, who are engaging with your emails on mobile. Best practice there, make sure that the header image really stands out from a mobile perspective. A lot of times I've seen brands try to put too much text in, or the image is too large and it's really kind of like it causes a delay in loading and you're scrolling. Really think about how your users engage and making it clear for that platform first, and then scale out from there. Uh, Other best practices, especially if it's on mobile, just make sure it's clear. A lot of times the image can be really a lot going on, and then the text overlay is a lot, and maybe it's in white text or it's a color text and it's hard to read. Just really put yourself in your customer's shoes. Is this going to make sense to them? If I open on a mobile device, is it clear to me? Send some test temps to yourself, and then ultimately do a couple of tests. That's how I truly think about that. Awesome. Cool. One question: do you have any case studies or brands, companies that aren't e-commerce but still use Klaviyo? We do actually. I don't know if we have any case studies live. I'd have to double check that. We do have brands that are not e-commerce that use Klaviyo, but our bread and butter that many brands are is truly e-commerce. We were built from the ground up to really serve the e-commerce community first and foremost. We do have other brands that are using Klaviyo, but definitely e-commerce is our number one focus. Cool. How long of a time frame do you allow for testing of a new campaign? What about after adjusting an existing platform? So this, to me, and our team really thinks about how much have you been sending. So like when you're coming from a different platform, you really want to give it some time to let things level out, to move over. But when it comes to campaign testing, I would say one test, in my opinion, because I'm kind of crazy like this, is never enough. Like I like to test things multiple times. Sometimes it could have been the day of the week you sent a campaign, or the time of the day, or what the content was. So if you ran, say, like a subject line test and you were using emojis versus not using emojis, I wouldn't run just one test and then say, yep, this worked. We should put emojis in every email. I would run a sequence of tests based on your learnings each time before you make a final decision. Same thing if you were testing body content, segmentation, anything like that. Run multiple tests outside of just one campaign to really get a good feeling for what's adjusting or for what's working. I have to say, e-commerce week of like these, I've done a few webinars. I think we've all done a few webinars, but I've done a few webinars in the last couple of months. By far the best questions I've had, by far the most engaging audience. So this is awesome. And I really thank you, A, for listening to me talk, and then really for engaging. Cool. So what does a true community mean to you? Good question. Community is going to be different for everyone. When I say a true community, I think about it as a people who have a like-minded interest. So your product is curated for a particular group. There are people who say you're a hiking brand. You sell hiking goods, you sell things. When I think about the community, inherently, if I sell hiking products, it's a community of people who like hiking. What makes it a true community, just from someone who purchases, I think is really sort of that engagement rate. When I think about the Klaviyo community, for example, it is a group of people who are looking to grow their business. They're looking to be successful. They're a lot of times founders, a lot of times they're career marketers that have been in the e-commerce space for a long time. When I see true community is when we're at, say, an event, we're at one of our workshops. And what I love is there could be two cosmetics companies sitting side by side, and they will literally talk to each other about what's working and what's not working for them. They don't see it necessarily as a competition. They just see it as we're all trying to grow. And when you see that kind of like those walls crumble and just people working together and talking, that's the kind of like community that I love to see. That's a true community to me. You see it on social. So that Noble example, they do posts like that all the time where they'll ask a question and you'll have a response. And then you see within one response, 150 replies on that one response. It's people going back and forth and engaging with one another. That's when I really start to think it's a true community, because they're gathering, they're talking. It may not be live and in person right now, but they're engaging with one another. And that to me is community. Cool. So question, how do you create a consistent voice and message across platforms without losing parts and making it feel like telephone? That is something that is challenging. And as you grow, it gets more challenging because you have different people eventually covering different channels. What I think always works is really building brand guidelines and a messaging guideline and a messaging hierarchy. So start at the top. What is your number one mission? What's the number one message? If you think about your brand, whatever you sell, you're solving a problem for someone. You're solving a problem for a lot of someone's, but you're essentially solving a problem. So when I think about the messaging, I want to make sure it all ladders up. So as a brand, we solve this problem. We exist to fix this problem, and we do it by offering XYZ product. Making sure that you and then your team is all clear on that main mission, that main goal, and then building down from there. One of the really tactical things that I love that I find works really well, think about the idea when there are probably certain words that you don't love to use in relation to your brand. I own a small coffee brand, D2C brand. We just got started. We have someone helping us with our social media. I hate exclamation points. It's not our brand. I wrote down like exclamation points are not okay. I wrote down that certain words are things we want to avoid. Those types of things, though they feel rudimentary, they're actually really helpful, especially as you start to expand your team and they become a reference point and they become something that people will look at and say, okay, yep, I remember this. It just becomes part of their creative approach when they're building these things out. So biggest thing is really create, even if you just start with your main message and then some things that people should be focused on with each channel, just a singular document that people can post up on their wall or on their computer and always reference. That's how I would start. You'd be surprised how well those just very basic items work. Another question. So how have you seen email shift in a social media share centric world? Interesting. So we're actually doing some research about this later this quarter. One of the things that I love when it comes to social versus email, social is really about, there's a lot of engagement there. There's a lot of advertising that happens there. And it kind of comes in flux, and a lot of it is dictated to the user based on what they've last engaged with, what they're frequently engaging with. When it comes to email, to me, those relationships are ones that last for much longer. Once someone has provided their email to you, you're able to continue to build, to refine that message, to customize every single message to them, and you can continue to build that engagement. What we firmly believe is that when it comes to email, you have those users for much longer time than you do through social. And that's why we say, like, always really think about your email strategy, really focus in on it, really build those relationships there. And then I think we have one last question. Has the pandemic added to the noise of too many emails received? And what have you recommended as a result to customers to really think through this? So it's interesting. The stats that we shared up at the top, those are from our customer base of over 40,000 customers. When it comes to email, there are certain points in time in the year where email is much more competitive for inbox competition, so for people to see it. Black Friday and Cyber Monday being one of the most competitive times. When I think of, is there a lot of noise or is there too much? That comes down to the personalization and the segmentation. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. We've all gotten those emails. We don't necessarily want to get a product email every single day. One of the customers that I think does this exceptionally well that maybe you want to check out is Noon Hydration. Some of their best converting emails are not their product emails. They're actually their community-driven emails that just talk about their actual community, the things that people are doing as a result of using Noon. So very similar strategy to the Away example from the top of the presentation, but a great way to truly like focus in on telling a story, engaging with the community, not always pushing product. I think that's when it becomes noise. If everything you do is product and you're not really fostering community with other types of content, user-generated content, that's when it can become too much.